I just heard someone shielding himself. Well, let's watch the French Revolution, guys. I have nothing to do. I actually gonna call the stream in 40 minutes, and then I'm just gonna chill for 2 hours and come back at 10. A team, if like El Tony or Wolf, if anyone wants to play, I will be like back at 10 or something, or a bit earlier. I don't know.
Damn, some dirty
but I will play tonight, 100%.
I've never worked a day in my life. Wow, that Marie Antoinette.
This guy needs to make more videos, man. He's so good.
Wouldn't want to be Prince Louis though. That's going to be a lot of responsibility.
I would love to see what he does about the Vietnam War, man.
Since France is in financial ruin. Quite. Thank you one and all for attending the royal marriage of my grandson, the future king of France, to the Archduchess of Austria. Now for
sorry, chat. I'm just gonna get kicked anyway. Don't even worry.
Very awkward yet historically accurate part of the ceremony.
Yellow was literally just a DLC for Red and Blue. True. What did Pokemon Yellow do for you, other than giving you Pikachu and the follow Pokemon? What else happened in Pokemon Yellow? What changed? Please, someone tell me. I think I have it somewhere here. Other than you have Pikachu behind you.
Alright, now that's out of the way. Let's leave the royal couple to it. You better give us an heir, you fat.
I will think that the greatest RPG ever on paper is Morrowind. Because Morrowind started something. It started this 3D, high quality, free game journey where you can be your own character. For me personally, I will think that the greatest RPG ever is Morrowind.
Ill-bred boy. Nighty-night.
I think so. That game just was so ridiculous, man.
France is in financial ruin.
Skywind? It's like a mod remake of Morrowind into Skyrim.
That sounds good, man. That sounds good. But I'm like a guy, I wanna... You have to close chapters. Morrowind was good when I was a kid. That's it. I will not go back to like in a modded Skyrim. Leave it at what it is, you know? Never played Baldur's Gate. I also have a different answer. Sorry for pausing. A game that influenced me heavily in my childhood, but my PC could never run it, and I was so young and dumb I could never beat the game. I didn't even know what to do. Was Siege of Avalon. Siege of Avalon, man. That was a big game as a kid. Don't know if people know that game, man. But wow. That game. Weirdo. But I was so bad at the game. I did not understand it. I was too young. I would always wear plate armor, but I couldn't handle the plate armor, and then I did 0 damage, and I never understood.
As it had been for centuries, an exquisite social culture, with the king and the upper classes throwing crazy parties every night, enjoying high living and fine dining. Who cares that they were only able to do so off the backs of the hard-working, starving poor? What are they gonna do? Revolt? They're only 80% of the population. No.
This is kind of us today, but we are the 99% of the population.
What's that, France? You want to go to war with Britain and increase your power? Go for it, little buddy.
We have watched Farmville 2 million times, guys.
You lost. Now you're in severe financial
This is the
debt.
Vampire
We have
Covenant.
no money. What do we do? Should we stop partying? Heck no. Party harder. That's okay. The peasantry will pick up
That's
the
French,
slack.
man.
They were created by God to do all the work, and you were created to reap all the benefits and party hard. That's just how society works, and we've all just accepted it for centuries.
Ah, the clergy was rank 1, actually.
Why?
Yeah, makes sense.
Why do the nobility get to be all rich and stuff? Just because they were born into it? And the rest of us schmucks just have to accept that? Hell, why do we even need a king? Who decided that? It all just seems very unfair and unequal, and I, for one, am starting to question it. Wow.
I love how Goethe already had a picture like this of himself, man. He must have been a nice little memer, man.
Very enlightened of you. And so began the Age of Enlightenment. Great philosophical thinkers across France and beyond began to question whether this beautiful nation was really all that beautiful.
What's your favorite streamer? Don't know. Lyric is my favorite streamer. I think he's the greatest.
Your grandpop died of smallpox this morning, which means good news, you're now the king. So just to sum up, France is in severe financial debt, and the angry populace are beginning to question how necessary you are. But hey, I believe in you, champ. You got this. Maybe.
He is so fucking dead.
Oh no! Prince Louis Capet became King Louis XVI in May 1774. He was a notoriously weak man, and he knew it. He barely had the wisdom to rule a nation, never mind one in crisis, and he was easily manipulated by those around him. One of his first acts was to try to get revenge on the British by financing their American colony's revolution. Hey, we're an independent nation now. That was real swell of you, Louis. Couldn't have done it without you. Glad I could help. So hey, about all that money we lent you, when can we get that back? Yep, you're a great guy. I'll
Wow,
never forget what
fucking
you've done for
America!
us.
You didn't pay them
Real
back. They
glad I
saved
could
your
help them,
ass.
But about that money, gotta go now,
Jeez.
chum. Best of luck.
Ah,
to you.
fucking Americans, bro.
No,
And they gave you the
now
freedom
France was
statue?
in even more
Liberty?
debt. France was
Bullshit.
poor, suffering under the strain of economic ruin, watched
Okay.
as the nobility continued to live as though nothing was wrong. In particular, they grew increasingly disdainful of the Queen, Marie Antoinette, as she continued to spend all of France's money on her own luxurious lifestyle and fashion, while the peasants were breaking their
Fucking
backs
monarchy,
in the
huh?
fields. She was walking around like, hey, my hair is a boat. I'm not making that up. Her hair really was a boat, and her lavish spending earned her the nickname Madame Deficit. And speaking of the Queen,
my
there
hair
was
is
also
a
a
boat.
long-standing scandal around the fact that the king took a very long time to boink her, and the working classes of Paris began ridiculing the royal couple with lewd pamphlets depicting the Queen as a court thought, and the king as a wuss, unable to fulfill his marital duty. Respect for the monarchy was at an all-time low, as France's finances were spiraling out of control, and the king and his aides really
Like, all the women today who are thoughts would have been great queens to monarchs back in the
only
day.
had one
Right?
solution
That makes
to the
sense.
crisis.
If you think about it.
Tax
I'm not
the
even
poor.
fucking... Yeah.
Tax the poor. We could do a sexy calendar shoot. I mean, tax the poor. And so it was.
Oh,
The
God.
poor, who were already struggling to make ends meet, found themselves being taxed from every direction. Hey,
God.
I'm the royal tax collector. Looks like you've yet to pay your income tax, head
Yes, more
tax.
guys, I heard.
By the way, how many windows you got in that house of yours? 3? Oof. Yep. There's gonna be a tax for that. Hey, your local priest here. Have you paid your church tithe yet? Well, at least this one is going to the good work of God. Sure. God. I think this year
Sure,
God wants
man.
me to buy a new swimming pool. Hey, private tax
Well,
collector
some
here.
things never change,
and I
huh?
brought some goons with me. Just a few quick questions. How much salt did you buy this year? About 7 kilos, I think? Yep. Okay, there's gonna be a tax for that. Oh. What's that?
And then
over
they
there?
wonder why they will
That's
get
extra
fucking
salt I
beheaded,
held
man.
over from last year, so I wouldn't have to buy as much this year. Oh, yeah, there's a tax for that. And what are you doing with all this salt? Well, obviously cooking. Mm-hmm. On the table. Yep. And preserving fish and meat. Oh no. Yep. And there's
There's
a
a
tax
tax
for
for
that.
that.
Hey, how old is he? He's 9. And so he's purchased his required amount of salt for this year, right? What? No, he's 9. Uh-oh. Sorry, little Timmy. Looks like I'm gonna have to tax you for that.
I mean, obviously they're gonna fuck them up for that.
Yep. Salty. There's going to be a tax for that, and that's not all.
I mean,
A huge
how
portion
fucking
of the
dumb you have to
peasants'
be as a
harvest
monarch
had to be given
to
up.
fuck
And there was
people like
also
that.
the labor tax, where peasants were required to work a certain number of days for their local lord without pay. Obviously, people weren't too happy with these taxation
You have to
policies,
pay for the
and
lord
aggressive
without
nature
paying.
of these private tax farmers sometimes even escalated to violence. In particular, though, the people really hated how inconsistent the taxation rules were across the nation, and also the fact that the first 2 estates often had to pay very little, if any tax at all. And so, the anger continued to grow. France had a
Streaming?
population
There's a
that
tax
was
for
just
that. Well,
about
that's what
ready
Germany is
to
doing
explode.
nowadays, sure.
What could push them over the edge? How about a touch of natural disaster? A series of harsh summers and winters left the peasants' harvests in ruin, meaning they had no food or money, and the cost of bread skyrocketed. Of course, the upper classes had massive stocks of grain and wheat, so they were virtually untouched by this new crisis. But now the poor really were starving, and they
This is like the 1%
began
nowadays,
to
but this time
riot. Women
this
to the
time
streets.
the monarchs, they have like the media on the back and
Bakeries were
shit.
raided, and
So
bakers-
this is like the story of life, right? We are the peasants and they are the big ones. But this time the big ones, they have the media and all that shit, Hollywood, to keep us at base, so we
expected of
don't
keeping
even
bread
think
for
of rebelling.
themselves, were sometimes even
Right,
hanged.
man? Yeah,
Wow,
Kalyagi
this is
plan.
really
George
getting out of
Soros,
control.
man. George
Your
Soros.
Majesty, we need some decisive action. You need to step up and lead us. What will you do? Okay, I've got
Except we're
this.
not starving.
I know. I'll summon the Estates
Not yet.
General, and they'll decide what to do. You really are a fat, ill-bred boy. The Estates General was the closest thing France had to a government, apart from the king. It was a purely advisory body, and was rarely summoned. In fact, it hadn't been summoned for 175 years prior to this. But with France in a severe crisis, the king felt the time was right to call on the government to help. The Estates General was made up of representatives from the 3 estates, that is, the clergy, the nobility, and everybody else. Okay, thanks for coming, everyone. The first order of business is regarding the clergy and nobility. You all get
Fucking
brand
wow
new
is
Porsches.
dead, boys.
You get a Porsche.
Fucking
and you
sucks,
get a
dude.
Porsche. And you get a Porsche. Everybody gets a Porsche. And now into the second order of business. France is completely out of money. Like, it's never been this bad before. Anyone got any ideas? How about we all get Lamborghinis next time? The king decided that in order to make a decision, they had to come up with a voting system. Okay, the clergy. You have a population of 130,000, so you'll get 1 vote. The nobility. You have a population of 350,000, so you'll also get 1 vote. And the third estate. You have a population of 27 million people and make up 98% of the population. Very impressive. You'll get 1 vote. The third estate were obviously pretty unhappy with this system because they kept on finding that this would happen. We propose to raise taxes on the third estate. All in favor? All opposed? 2 to 1. Taxes will be raised on the third estate. We propose a motion that says the first 2 estates are a bunch of poo-poo heads. All in favor? All opposed? 2 to 1. It's
Democracy.
official. We are not poo-poo heads. The third estate realized that any attempt at reform would be outvoted by the 2 upper estates, and they thought that was kind of lame. So they decided that since they were 98% of the population, they could go off to form their own government, make their own laws, and take over the running of the country. And so, the National Assembly was born. The third estate
This
was
is very
now in
informative to me.
control,
I don't know anything about this,
the
actually.
king could do to
This is
stop.
really helping me, actually,
I've
to
locked
be
you
more
all out of your
educated.
building. What are you going to do about it? We'll probably go find a different building that isn't locked. Oh, no! The National Assembly did find another unlocked building, just down the road, an indoor tennis court. Where on the 20th of June,
They played
1789,
tennis already at that
they all
time?
took the tennis court oath, pledging to continue meeting until
Tennis
the
was
king
already a
finally
thing?
gave in to their demands for more equality and economic reform.
I'm level
This new
58,
National
but
Assembly
World of
included
Warcraft is
many of the
dead.
most
The server's
educated
died.
members of the Third Estate, including 2 young lawyers by the names of Maximilien Robespierre and Georges
I heard
Danton.
very often
Some
of
members of the
Robespierre,
first 2
but I don't know who
estates
that is.
even joined their cause. Some of these men formed a radical new political party called the Jacobin Club and quickly
that's-
became leading
this is
figures.
the Jacobins,
While many members of the
Jacobino.
Third Estate simply wanted more equality, a growing number in this Jacobin faction would begin
2015,
calling for
40 even
something
played
even
tennis. Wow.
crazier: the removal of the king entirely.
Playing
this
fine
is
on
where
German
fear
server, but
began to
nobody
take hold.
plays on German
With
servers,
such a
man.
volatile situation developing, everyone was afraid of something. The king feared his position was under threat, and he called in the military to take position around Paris. The Third Estate heard rumor of the gathering military force, and they feared the king was planning to round them up and arrest them. Maybe he'd even execute them. It also didn't help that the king had just dismissed France's popular finance minister, who had been trying to make reforms himself. It seemed the king was done negotiating. Fear, left unchecked, often boils over into anger, and anger detonates with violence.
Leads to
the
suffering.
Angry people of Paris, after centuries
Everybody became
of
a Sith
cruel
Lord, man.
inequality, harsh oppression, even starvation, fearful of having their new movement for reform demolished so soon, decided that it was now or never to take action. Screw reform. They decided they'd do
La
one
Femme de
better.
Nuit
How
means,
about
the girl of the night, right?
revolution? The people of Paris, believing the French military was preparing to attack, decided they should arm themselves. The National Assembly announced the creation of a bourgeois militia, the National Guard, and immediately, many troops from the French military defected over to the revolutionary side. In the early hours of July
Well,
14,
good decision.
1789, a large crowd stormed and raided the Hôtel des Invalides, a military hospital where they were able to secure a large number of rifles. The bad news was they weren't able to find any gunpowder for their new weapons. The good news was they knew exactly where to get some. A prison fortress and a symbol of royal tyranny towering over Paris, the Bastille. Mid-morning, the crowd gathered around the Bastille and demanded
There's
that
always
the man in
little
charge,
words I
Governor
learned from school, like the
Delaunay,
charge
surrender
of the
prison
Bastille.
and hand over the gunpowder.
They're charging that
Obviously,
thing,
Governor
right? Thank you,
Delaunay was
Rinwar, man.
like,
What's up?
No way. So he stalled for
What's
time
up?
by inviting a few members of the crowd in for negotiations. The crowd, still waiting outside, quickly became impatient, and before long, they stormed the fortress, taking on the French troops inside. Your Majesty, we've received word that the people have surrounded the Bastille. Governor Delaunay will hold them off. No need to worry. Actually, Your Majesty,
You're in Bastille at
it
the start
appears
of
the crowd
AC
is now
Unity.
headed
Okay, I never
away
played
from
that.
the Bastille. You see? What did I tell you? Clearly, Governor Delaunay has defeated them and has them on the run. No need to worry. Your Majesty,
Fucking monarchs,
isn't
man.
that Governor Delaunay's head on a pike? Well,
Oh,
clearly, Governor
Oh.
Delaunay has taken on the form of a bodiless
Oh.
pikehead deity, and the people are so enamored with him, they're parading him around the city. No need to worry at all. When the National Assembly heard about the violence that had taken place, they had 2 options. Either 1, they denounce it and try to carry on the revolution using peaceful means, or 2, they say, damn, you stuck his head on a pike? That's pretty hardcore. And we love it. Incidentally, they went with option number 2. Some historians believe this reaction paved the way for the utter violence and bloodshed that would become the legacy of the French Revolution. This widespread acceptance of violence during the Revolution is also largely credited to the writings of a certain Jean-Paul Marat, a man of science with a
I said it. I will play WoW for a week. I don't give a fuck about
He
the
began writing a radical newspaper here.
Next week we're going back to normal, okay? And you guys can watch my reactions and shit.
Very afraid. Given the chance, the king and the nobility won't hesitate to massacre us all. The solution is simple. Execute them. Kill every last one of them. Cut off 1,000 heads. And if that's not enough, cut off 1,000 more. Hey, Mr. Squeaky. What are you doing down there? You're so cute. Oh, I love you too, Mr. Squeaky. Mwah. Now, where was I? Oh, yeah. Kill them all. It became one of the most popular publications in Paris during the Revolution and succeeded in spreading ever-increasing fear and anger among the people. In August, leaders of the National Assembly, with help from a certain Thomas Jefferson, adopted the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen,
Thomas Jefferson
an incredible document that guaranteed liberty and equal rights to all men. And when I say men, I mean men. Despite its glaring shortcomings in gender equality, the massively influential declaration would go on to inspire the struggle for liberty and equality.
1700s, okay, sorry, fuck, don't fucking
However,
put me in a
back
pipe,
in France,
Jesus.
The vast majority of the people weren't really so concerned with enlightened ideas of equality as much as they were concerned with the fact that they were still starving. Bread was still expensive as hell and hard to come by. The people felt that one reason nothing had been done yet about the crisis was because the king simply couldn't see the problem. He lived in Versailles, a full 20 kilometers southwest of Paris, and as a result, lived in comfort, separated from his dirty, stinking subjects. On October 5th, a crowd of women, 7,000 strong, decided they'd do something unprecedented. They decided to remove that separation and confront the king directly. The women marched all the way to the king's palace in Versailles. Along the way, the crowd continued to grow into the tens of thousands, and when they arrived, they demanded an audience with the king. What are those things outside the palace? They're poor people, your majesty. That's poor people? They say they're hungry. Hungry? Then let them eat cake. Wow. See, this is the exact BS that led to this whole mess in the first place. You're so out of touch. They're writhing around in the filth, breaking their back to barely scrape by, and they come to you demanding just the basic ability to feed themselves.
Was the ambassador
and you think
for
a
France,
slice of cake will sort them out? Well, then let them eat Taco Bell Crunchwrap Supreme. Wow. They're not that desperate. Members of the crowd actually managed to break into the palace with the intention of killing the queen, who narrowly escaped through a secret passage in her bedroom. The enraged mob killed several members of the royal guard.
Clever to have a secret escape.
Which, if you haven't noticed yet, is something they were quite fond of doing. The king had no choice but to come out and talk to the crowd. He agreed to accept his new position,
that crowd must have smelled so bad,
with the revolutionary government, and to return to Paris with the crowd, removing the separation between king and subject. King Louis had a problem with people constantly raiding his palace, but one thing he didn't have a problem with was people raiding his computer, because he used NordVPN. If, like me, you don't like hackers stealing your data, password,
I'm gonna watch it to support the guy,
and girlfriend, then you need to check out NordVPN. With over 5,000
that was very good. That was pretty good, man.
That was pretty good. Anonymously and safely with no personal data
it's the symbol of the mountains. It's not a haircut. I always thought it's the fucking. Oh my god, man.
They're doing a crack open the case on you.
Some sweet Japanese Netflix.
Why are you sending me full of Yugoslavia, man? Jesus Christ.
That for some reason has been blocked in your country. Well, with NordVPN, you can. NordVPN gives you access to super fast servers and much more.